Here we go. Election day is here. It's not the midterms, but the stakes are very high. We've got major gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia. We've got Prop 50 on the ballot in California. We have the big mayoral race in New York City. Donald Trump already trying to interfere in that New York City mayoral race, saying that he will withhold funds if Zoran Mamdani ends up winning the mayor's race. He will not support New York City and try to bankrupt it. Yet another act among many that Donald Trump commits every day that I believe to be patently unlawful. Let's talk about Donald Trump's approval, or should I say disapproval. The highest disapproval rating from the CNN polls in both of Donald Trump's terms. His disapproval right now at around 63% is worse than following the January 6th insurrection during his first term. He's underwater on every single issue. He's underwater with every demographic, including white people at this point, where he's -1. But you go to Black Americans, it's like -74. You go to Hispanic Americans, it's approaching -37. It is -37. And what was Donald Trump doing this weekend? He was throwing a Great Gatsby roaring 20s party with the slogan, "A little party never killed nobody." This, as the American people are quite literally starving to death as Donald Trump tries to deprive them of SNAP benefits. This is Donald Trump is taking away health care for over 20 million Americans. And the gaslighting, lies, and cover-up of the Epstein files continues by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. A piece of news, though, on the Epstein files: the New York Times and Wall Street Journal made a public records request in one of the existing dockets in a case involving the big banks who may have been involved in holding Epstein's money. And guess what they found out? 4,700 suspicious activity reports for a total of $1 billion flagged by JP Morgan Chase. Alex Acosta, Donald Trump's labor secretary and that federal prosecutor back who gave Epstein the sweetheart deal in 2007. Well, when he testified in his deposition recently, he said, yeah, we weren't doing any investigations into the financial crimes. Well, $1 billion in money laundering seems to be something your office was investigating, and that you deep-sicked with lots of billionaire men involved in that as well. We'll talk about that and more. This is the MeidasTouch Podcast. Brett and Jordy, we've got a lot to discuss. As I mentioned, the stakes are very, very high. Oh, yeah. Election day, Tuesday, November 4th.
Big election day. Hey, if you're listening to this, it's election day today. Make sure to go out and vote. Exercise your democratic right. That's what it's all about while we still have it. Please go to the polls. I just don't not understand, Ben and Jordy and Mighty, this whole strategy that MAGA Mike is doing. It seems like every day he comes out, it's like Groundhog Day. It's the same shit. He comes out, he lies, he gaslights, he literally projects and says everything, like everything that he's saying is actually about himself, but he's blaming the Democrats for everything. All this while he's basically making this ultimatum, like, let me either starve you or take away your health care. You decide, peasants, that's on you. And for you, this is all about, obviously, the Epstein files as well. We're going to protect the Epstein files at all costs. We're not going to open up the government. I mean, it's certainly a choice. And I think when you look at what he's doing, when you look at Donald Trump's rhetoric, when you look at Donald Trump's actions, when you look at them just basically, it's not even basically, they are just laughing in our faces. They are mocking us. They are mocking you when they have these Great Gatsby Roaring 20s theme parties. By the way, anybody ever tell them how the end of how the Roaring 20s ended, or how the end of Great Gatsby, what happens? Maybe they should read. Maybe they should read up on history and literature. However, I think they are just laughing in our face here. And it's no surprise when you look at the numbers that they are where they are. They're like kind of rock bottom right now. I mean, there's still plenty of room for them to fall, but you see the American people aren't being gaslit right now. They are understanding that prices are higher. They are understanding that their lives are worse off under Donald Trump. And it's just a disgrace to see them coming out here every day and trying to lie and try to act like we're in some sort of golden age when it's quite the contrary. We're going to get into it all. Big elections today, as I said. Looking forward to that. Jordy, What's the latest on your end?
Let's go. What's up, Midas Mighty? What's up, brothers? I'm stoked to get into today's show. I don't really have anything for the intro here other than to say, Ben, I like how your intros, they're getting a bit quippier. I think the Midas Mighty are appreciating that too. I saw some comments there, leaving a little left to be desired there beyond the intro. We like that. So Ben, where are we starting off today?
Well, I realized that I was hogging a lot of the brother time, and I want to make sure we're all getting a good amount of screen time early on. So you guys didn't flag that for me. That was a realization that I made on my own. So let's just talk about MAGA Mike's disastrous press conference first. Then I want to show former President Obama making major stops in Virginia and New Jersey, California Governor Gavin Newsom giving an impassioned speech today in California about Prop 50, and California Governor Gavin Newsom's wife, I thought, gave really an incredible speech as well. But so Donald Trump gave this interview with 60 Minutes last night. It was heavily edited, which is interesting because Donald Trump previously sued 60 Minutes when he claimed that they made an edit, which was very non-material, when former Vice President Kamala Harris did an interview with them leading up to the November 2024 elections. Again, it was a non-material edit. Trump was too afraid to even do an interview with 60 Minutes leading up to the November 2024 election. And then Donald Trump sued 60 Minutes and CBS and said that he suffered, not making this up, emotional distress because there was just kind of ums and ahs and, again, non-material things edited out on the version that aired on TV. Although the full version was available online, Trump sued for $20 billion. And then you all know the history of CBS and 60 Minutes. They got rid of Colbert. The 60 Minutes and CBS top producers and leaders left. They brought in Barry Weiss, this far right-wing blogger who's now running CBS. CBS was sold and has new ownership. And so Donald Trump's like, okay, now with Barry Weiss running it, I'm going to go on and I'm going to now it will be the interview that I want to do, and they'll do the edits for me. And I think it was supposed to be, I think if you looked at what was online, it was 73 minutes, and only 28 minutes actually aired on TV. And they did edit out very material points. Like there was a whole point where Donald Trump talked about how 60 Minutes and CBS will give him good coverage now because of the new ownership, and how happy he is that it's under right-wing leadership. You would think that 60 Minutes would put that on because, in the past, the tradition of 60 Minutes was to be self-critical and to not shy away from things. But that's one of the key things that did not make it on the air. Also, one of the things that didn't make it on air is when he was attacking the inflation under former President Biden. And then he was asked, well, isn't it worse right now under you? He's like, no. It's way better. There were other moments where he talked about inflation that was aired, but that moment wasn't aired. And there were other moments about nuclear weapons that weren't aired. So it wasn't like minor stuff. It was major stuff. But one of the things, to be fair, that was aired, Donald Trump was asked by Norah O'Donnell, who was interviewing, about his pardon of a billionaire named CZ, who runs a company called Binance, a crypto exchange, who was pled guilty to very serious money laundering charges that his platform was used to basically shift money around to Al-Qaeda, Hamas, trafficking operations, real serious stuff. Now, CZ was supposed to pay the government back $4 billion in restitution. But you see, CZ entered into a deal with the Trump crypto business, World Liberty Financial, and propped up the stable coin there. So it was worth like $2 billion. And a lot of Donald Trump's increase in wealth comes from the fact that that stable coin from World Liberty Financial was propped up by CZ and other people as well who were looking to gain favors. The United Arab Emirates was one of them, and a bunch of other people. So Donald Trump then gave CZ a pardon, a full and complete pardon. So Donald Trump was asked about it by Norah O'Donnell. Don't you think that that reeks of corruption? She didn't say those words, but that was the essence of the question. And Donald Trump goes, you ready? You ready? Whenever he says you're ready to, he always lies, but when he goes, you ready? It's going to be one of the most outlandish lies. You ready for this? Yeah, I'm ready, Donald. What's it going to be? I don't know who the guy is. No clue. Don't even know him. Well, wasn't the whole thing that you and the MAGA Republicans have been saying right now while American people don't give a crap and they're suffering? Former President Biden used an auto pen and didn't know the people who he was pardoning. Wasn't that your whole thing with auto pen this, auto pen that? But This is kind of a bigger deal, don't you think? Billions of dollars funneled to your family's company, making you a ton of money, and then you pardon the guy. He's not like a minor guy who you don't know the name of. I mean, he's one of the wealthiest crypto guys out there right now, frankly, because of you, CZ, and you don't know who he is? So MAGA Mike Johnson earlier this morning in those press conferences, he was asked. And Manu Raju at CNN does a really good job with these questions. So Manu Raju says, so I'm trying to understand this, MAGA Mike. You're the Speaker of the House. You must have a position here, right? You've been critical of Biden. You've claimed Biden didn't know who he pardoned. And you said that that's the worst thing ever. So what do you make of Donald Trump saying he doesn't know this crypto billionaire? Here, let's play this clip.
Questions. Manu, you get it first every time. This is not fair.
Last week, you came here to these mics, and you were very critical of Joe Biden's use of the auto pen, his pardons. You said he didn't even know who he was pardoning. But last night on 60 Minutes, President Trump admitted not knowing he pardoned a crypto billionaire who pleaded guilty to money laundering. Does that also concern you?
I don't know anything about that. I didn't see the interview. You have to ask the president about that. I'm not sure. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me bring in Brett and Jordy for that. What does he know? I mean, I think Aaron Rupar says we may have to start asking the meta question of, don't you think it's important as the speaker that you start knowing these things? Because every critical issue you say you don't know while you spew these lies about the government shutdown. Brett and Jordy.
It's truly shameful. He comes out every day. He puts on this, I'm a good Christian, I'm a moral man sort of act. And then he defends the most heinous behavior possible. And anytime he gets a question that he knows is a good question that's going to make himself look bad every single day, he goes, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. I know every conspiracy theory that we've made up about Democrats, but I don't know anything about this whatsoever. I'm sorry. It's just the same charade every single day. And guys, I gotta be honest with the Midas Mighty here. I'm feeling very emotionally distressed from those 60 Minutes edits, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it through the podcast. I'm going to try. I'm really going to try, but I'm very emotionally distressed. I might have to call some lawyers. I don't know. What do you think the going rate is now? I mean, Trump did it for 20 billion. There's been inflation, 40 billion lawsuit, 80 billion lawsuit, that 10 billion zillion trillion lawsuit.
$20 trillion, the amount equal to what Donald Trump claims he brought into this country.
That feels like that would make my heart whole after all of this.
You'd be a little less distressed.
I'd be a little less distressed. I think I'd be able to make it through. But I'm joking. And obviously, listen, I'm a video editor myself. I've worked on TV shows, right? I've worked on numerous shows and movies and things. Obviously, things are edited to fit time, right? Like that's it. But Trump set the standard here, right? Trump set the standard here when he made the most baseless lawsuit imaginable, one that ended up being vindicated in a weird way by CBS's complete and utter capitulation. And that's the issue when you capitulate to Donald Trump. All of your reporting after that is stained. All of your reporting after that is just, you can no longer trust it. And when you look at the things that they actually decided to cut out of those things that were about that specific case, things that Donald Trump does not want to be out there in the broader public, you start to say, that's interesting that those are the edits that they decided to make. Sure, they threw it up on their website where they know nobody's going to check. But they didn't air it on the actual show itself. They've set themselves up now in a really bad place. And of course, with the change of ownership and all the kind of courting that they've done with the Trump administration to try to get their buy-in for these various mergers and acquisitions and all the various things that they've done, they have completely ruined their credibility and abdicated their responsibility as journalists. And I got to say, it hurts me. Like I want a strong press. I'm emotionally distressed again, guys. It's happening again. Oh no, it just became 200 trillion. Thanks. It's good to have the show at the Brothers, because when I'm going through hard times and emotional distress like this, they got my back, and I see all your comments. Maybe I'll do a class action. I see a lot of people in the comments also. A lot of people emotionally distressed. Maybe we'll figure something out. But you get my point. They've ruined their credibility. MAGA Mike has no credibility, and at this point, I legitimately don't see what he gains by coming out every single day, gaslighting the public, lying, pretending he doesn't know these big scandals. He just shows that they are these like weasels, that they are these snakes, that they are these liars and criminals and frauds, that they are these cabals of pedo protectors, of Epstein protectors. And it is just so disgraceful. And you see, and even, people who you never would have imagined breaking away from this MAGA movement and this Republican Party saying, hold up, what the hell is going on here? This is not what I signed up for. And I think that's also one of the reasons you see this complete and total collapse in the polls.
Totally. A few points here. First, let me start on the 60 Minutes beat. So I took real issue with 60 Minutes, and I took real issue with Norah O'Donnell. Generally speaking, I like her. Like, she's fine. I don't really know much about her, but when she did the evening broadcast, she was great. That 60 Minutes interview, it was a real travesty. And, it's beyond this notion of platforming, right? Like, I feel like that's so often a term that gets used in our space. Like, why would you ever platform this person? He's the president. It's not platform. He's the president. People want to hear from him. Okay. But when you just, nod along with the lies that the person you're interviewing is spewing, and especially if that person is the president, you're no longer conducting an interview. You're just being used as a propaganda tool. Truly, shame on CBS. I had a low bar, but it was beyond my lowest expectation. It was really just horrendous stuff. And then
Very serious question, though. Are you feeling distressed?
And I am feeling distressed. I am
I
am certainly feeling distressed after watching that. And genuinely, I was really frustrated watching that because I know Norah O'Donnell, as far as the work that she puts out into the world, I'm generally fine. But that was just so bizarre yesterday when you had, or Sunday night when that interview was going, and you had Donald Trump up there calling Mandami a communist, and just no pushback and just nodding along. And then beyond that, just how the shutdown is the Democrats' fault, and not allowing him or not forcing him to answer a question, to drill down. There was that question towards the end or the middle of the interview when she had asked, hey, 2028, you're not going to run again, correct? It was paraphrasing, but that's essentially what she said. And then Trump, starts saying something about JD Vance, doesn't acknowledge the question, and boom, cut, next question. What are we doing here? If you're going to conduct that interview, please conduct the interview. Don't just be used as a tool again for this MAGA regime. And then to Donald Trump and Mike Johnson, who just seemingly never know, when the question does get hard and they might be pressed up against a wall here and they have to actually answer something. So that their out is you just allow them to say, I don't know. In the case of Trump here, CZ, I don't even know. Get ready for this. I don't even know the guy. Okay, but you pardoned him. That's one of the most serious things that you do as president of the United States is issue these pardons. You don't know the person you're pardoning? How does that even happen? And when we could play everyone's favorite game, imagine if Biden did it, we don't even have to play that game because they're running on that game right now. They're trying to negate Biden's pardons by coming up with some cockamamie thing about an auto pen and this and that. Donald Trump is out here saying he literally doesn't know the gentleman that he's pardoning. Yeah. Obviously.
And it's so much more than that too, Jordy, because the CZ guy, for those who don't know, he helped facilitate a $2 billion purchase of World Liberty Financial. That is Donald Trump's family's crypto business. He is the one who literally kept it afloat and helped that business succeed, which made the Trump family, at least on paper, worth billions and billions and billions of dollars. And this crypto scandal that is right before our eyes right now, that we get little bits and pieces reported on every day, to me is honestly maybe the biggest scandal in American history. It is the epitome of the corruption and moral rot that we see with this Trump administration. So does Donald Trump know who he is? Damn well Donald Trump knows who he is. He helped make his family incredibly wealthy through these shady schemes with probably all this foreign money flowing through it. It is a disgrace. It is a shame to our nation. I think back to Jimmy Carter having to sell his freaking peanut farm while Donald Trump in broad daylight is committing the biggest heist we have ever seen in our nation's history.
I want to go back to MAGA Mike's press conference where he tried to say, look, everybody, the Republicans are the party of healthcare. Look what we did with the beautiful budget bill. We made healthcare cheap. We saved it all. That's what we did in the budget bill. And we all know that the disastrous budget bill took away $200 billion from rural hospitals, then gave back $50 billion. Said, we gave them $50 billion. No, you stole $150 billion. We know that it gutted Medicaid. It took out mostly all of the funding from SNAP on a going forward basis, not what we're just even talking about here, but the future of SNAP is now in jeopardy as a result of this disastrous budget bill. But watch this gaslighting by MAGA Mike. Here, play this clip.
Republicans are the ones fighting to save health care. Why? It's not just talking points to us. We do this. We have ideas, and we have already implemented ideas and measures to reduce costs, increase access and quality, and eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. Now, why do we say it's not just a talking point? Why do we say the Republican Party is the only one advancing common sense reform solutions? Because we've proven it. We did that in the big, beautiful bill, the Working Families Tax Cut. We took a look at Medicaid, and we took on that challenge. We took action to reduce fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicaid. We got able-bodied young men without dependents off the program. We got illegal aliens off the program, and we saved.
So now what they're saying is that their health care plan was the disastrous budget bill, which everybody knows is the worst thing to happen to healthcare because it takes away people's healthcare. So if you're spiking the football and you say the disastrous budget bill is your plan, then why are people right now on open enrollment seeing their annual premiums go up $20,000 to $30,000 a year? If you solved it in the disastrous budget bill, maybe, just maybe, you're a liar, and the disastrous budget bill actually made things significantly.
And Ben, isn't it so on brand? Like, when I noticed this too, whenever these Republicans have to speak about, like, so who are the experts in your party to speak about healthcare? Like, who's going to be the future proponent? Who's going to be the guy who helps craft the incredible Republican healthcare plan of the future? If you ask this to Republicans, you know who they'll answer? Well, Senator Rick Scott, of course. Senator Rick Scott. Senator Rick Scott is the guy who ran a company that had the biggest fine in history for committing the largest Medicare fraud scheme in history at the time. I think it's been surpassed since then. But at the time, his company had to pay a $1.7 billion fine for scamming people on the Medicare program. That was Rick Scott, and that's the guy they want to put in charge of healthcare. Just think about how crazy this is. I mean, I guess they view this guy as their like Medicare fraud expert. I guess in a sick, perverse way, he is a Medicare fraud expert because he was the guy committing Medicare fraud on scales that nobody has seen in our history.
Right, because when we talk about waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicare and Medicaid, it's not almost ever like the individual who's sick, right? What are they saying? Oh, I'm going to fake back surgeries so I could get back surgeries that I don't need. Like, okay, that's not where it's coming from. It's coming from these medical conglomerates and oftentimes these providers and health centers, right, that are billing for services not rendered, okay? And that was the issue to the tune of billions and billions of dollars with Rick Scott. The waste, fraud, and abuse are the billionaires who were partying at those Gatsby parties with Donald Trump, right? They're the oligarchs who are the ones ripping off the taxpayers. It's not the individuals. They like to have this boogeyman, this gamer who's in the basement of their parents, like setting up back surgeries for themselves and then getting the surgeries going, look what I did. I got a surgery that I didn't need. I convinced doctors to, engage in an L5-S1 surgery. Come on, that's not what's happening. It's happening at the provider, more health center level is what's really going on.
Very specific reference of surgery.
Yeah, well, because that's one that I needed. Finally, and then anyway, I won't go into my backstory. But then finally,
how is
MAGA
your
Mike?
these days?
So just MAGA Mike. Just talking about MAGA Mike. MAGA Mike Johnson then talks about the Epstein files during this was a kind of a repeated theme. He goes back and just think about the admissions that they're making right here. And if you haven't thought that they're a liar, here's what MAGA Mike said about the Epstein files. Let's play it.
But the Epstein thing is a complete red herring. It's a distraction from what's going on right now and them causing harm to the American people with the shutdown. The Epstein estate documents are out. The Epstein files are out. 43,000 pages so far, more on the way.
Mission accomplished. They did it. Like, just think what they're going with. The budget bill helped healthcare. The Epstein files are out. There's not inflation anymore, and that Americans are experiencing a golden age, right? They say grocery prices have not increased and the cost of other products and services have not increased. Let me explain to you what's going on. They're living in their roaring 20s, Gatsby themed parties. They're living where their biggest issues are the Club Rose Garden or building golden ballrooms and triumphal arches. They are so disconnected, one, from the American people, and two, they so maliciously are okay with harming the American people that they're so disconnected from the suffering that's actually taking place outside. And just think about it. While we're in this government shutdown, approaching the longest government shutdown in history with no end in sight, as Americans are suffering, they have the idea, let's do a Gatsby party. Let's just go out there and show the most incredible wealth and just rub it in the people's faces. At least Marie Antoinette let them eat cake. This Trump regime we're going to starve you to death. We have a lot more to talk about. I want to talk about New Jersey. I want to talk about Virginia. I want to talk about California. I want to talk about elections. I want to talk about former President Obama. Let's talk a little bit more about the discovery in some of these Epstein court documents that were released. The $1 billion money laundering. What are the implications there? We've got a lot to discuss, folks. Don't go anywhere. Hit the join, though, if you want to help support the growth of this independent media platform and become a member of our YouTube channel. And you can gift memberships to others who may not be able to afford it. Those subscriptions, those memberships, you get exclusive content like a podcast I do with Ron Filipkowski, and it helps grow our independent media platform. First quick break of the show. Don't go anywhere.
Let me say one thing. While we're at break, I want to hear if you're watching live in the YouTube comments. Let us know if you had a chance to watch our movie, The Last Republican, over the weekend. Would love to get your thoughts. Okay, and I'll let you guys discuss that now. We'll be right back after this. Don't you go anywhere.
I have to tell you about this game-changing product I use before a night with drinks. It's called Pre-Alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Now here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Every time I have pre-alcohol before drinks, I notice a difference the next day. Even after a night out, I can confidently plan on having a great next day without worrying. So I first gave pre-alcohol a try when I was at a wedding over the summer. I drank it before my first cocktail, and you wouldn't believe how on top of my game I felt the very next morning. Now fall is right around the corner, so that means it's time to raise a glass to your favorite team. Whether you're tailgating, enjoying a college game day, or watching Sunday's action on that fancy new TV, don't forget ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink. Drink a pre-alcohol before drinking and enjoy great days after celebrating all season long. Go to zbiotics.com/Meidas to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Meidas at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/Meidas and use the code Meidas at checkout for 15% off.
This episode of the MeidasTouch Podcast is brought to you by Graza. Everyone knows I love to cook for my friends, and what's taken my food to that next level is Graza. Graza is my olive oil of choice. It's delicious, easy to use, extra virgin olive oil at an affordable everyday price. And by the way, it's been my olive oil of choice before they even came on as a sponsor, which is why I'm extra excited to share it with you. Graza is always super fresh. They pick, press, and bottle all their olives in the same season. You can even see the harvest date on every bottle. Graza has not one, but 2 extra virgin olive oils to stock your kitchen, both available in squeeze or glass bottles. There's Sizzle, their everyday cooking oil that's perfect for roasting, sauteing, and, well, anything you cook. And then there's Drizzle, a bright, punchy, aromatic finishing oil that's great for dipping bread, whipping up salad dressings, or even drizzling over ice cream. You heard me right. I'm always cooking, so quality olive oil is essential in my kitchen, and you can taste the difference with Graza. The flavor is clean, pure, vibrant, and grassy. I always keep both Sizzle and Drizzle on hand because they're absolutely delicious, and they even look great on the countertop. And you will get 10% off your first order of any olive oil on their site, but I wholeheartedly recommend the Graza Duo. You will receive 2 bottles of extra virgin olive oil, Sizzle for cooking, and Drizzle for finishing with that extra kick of bold flavor. So head to graza.co and use code Meidas to get 10% off and get to cooking your next chef quality meal. That's graza.co, code Meidas, MEIDAS.
Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in description of both the audio and the YouTube. Use the links, use the codes. If there's an exit survey, let them know we sent you. One sec there, Benji. I was thinking about something. I've been thinking about it. So I promise this is going to lead somewhere. I went to a Big Ten school, the Ohio State University. We had our fair share of themed parties. We would do a lot of fun themes and it would be great. You know, the one day we didn't do a theme party? On Halloween. Why? Because it's already a theme. Is no one talking like the Gatsby theme is offensive for so many reasons. So many of which there are 42 million Americans starving and they're just flaunting their wealth in people's faces. But Halloween is already a theme.
It's not a bad point. Not a bad point at all. It really is. It's just such an FU, right? And that's why, though, it's intentional. And like the things they do are intentional. Like they want people to know, like, we are saying F you. We hate you, American people. We hate you. And this is what we think about you, you little peasants. And it couldn't be more obvious when we see the things that they do and say every single day.
Look, Eric Trump dressed up his kid as money, right? And then they mocked the No Kings peaceful protests, and he dressed as like a king, and then he dressed up his kid as money. I mean, just think about that. I mean, it's behavior like that. What Lauren Boebert dressed up as like a Mexican person wearing a sombrero, and then her new boyfriend was an ICE agent, and it said, "Tell me if I'm juicy ice is coming" or something, and it's like. It's not funny. I mean, you're making fun of like Mexican people, and you have like an ICE agent. But it's really strange behavior. And then do you remember what was it? A few years ago, they dressed as trash, and that's like, remember they dressed as trash at Halloween over and over again. It's just a very bizarre cult. And I think that obviously we know corporate media is like fully capitulated to this, but I'm glad that we've been able to build this independent media platform, because I know there are so many Americans and so many people around the world that look at this behavior as just so grotesque and disgusting. And they're like, why isn't anybody like calling out this behavior? And then finally it's like, the cavalry has arrived. Let's call this behavior out. I want to talk about the key elections that are taking place on Tuesday. Before that, I want to talk about just some numbers. And I think it also helps inform why the Republican Party, why Trump are historically unpopular right now. Just think about this. Our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, writes, today, Mike Johnson will keep the House adjourned for the 91st day out of the last 103. 12 days of work in 103 days with full pay and benefits. The Senate at least has been working, so it's not about the shutdown. It's about avoiding a vote to release the Epstein files. I want to talk about these other numbers right here. The the amount of layoffs in the first 3 quarters, 950,000 layoffs. So other than COVID and other than the Great Recession, in the first 3 quarters ending in September, the most layoffs, and we still in a year, and we still have 1 more quarter to go. And there was just a massive amount of layoffs by Amazon and all these other companies that are now citing AI as the reason. Like in October, a massive amount of layoffs. So to me, the biggest amount of layoffs that we're going to see in this data is coming in this last quarter. As Max Kennerly writes, congrats to everyone who put Republicans in charge, quote, for the economy. The first 3 quarters of 2025 already had more layoffs than any of the years in which Biden or Obama was president, except 2009, when Dems were still cleaning up the prior Republican mess. And you can see it there in the data. I mean, that's
one of the things
not,
that's so dangerous about AI, though, right? Like, and I'm not like somebody who's like anti all AI. I think AI, you know, there's a lot of AI that has purpose, but I think the way that you see these big corporations using AI right now, and at least at this moment in time, thinking that they could replace a lot of their workforce thanks to AI. And you're seeing now like this very big seismic change kind of happening in the United States economy and around the world right before our eyes, and nobody really has an answer to it. And I think back to, what former President Biden would say, that a job is it's more than just a paycheck. What it's about your dignity. It's about your dignity. And you're throwing all these people out of their jobs. You're replacing them with computers. And then what? Like, well, ultimately, we're going to have to like cut checks to people. Are we going to, all I see that's happening right now, especially when you see these parties and when you see people like Eric Trump dressed as a king and their son dressed as money and all the various things, is I think back to that dynamic, Ben, that you speak about so much on this show, which is that Lord versus peasants dynamic, where they want all the corporations and the billionaires, they want all these people to have all the money, all the success, access to everything. And then they basically give the scraps to the regular people in the country. And they hope, well, AI will settle your little problems. This little check will settle your little problems. Go enjoy. And I think it's just a troubling thing that is like, I think currently happening, that I think is going to get worse. I think when we look at these various kind of AI platforms, like the way Elon Musk is using his like Grok, that's like his answer to ChatGPT, for example, using AI to push certain propaganda. When we see these kind of like betting markets that are out there, using these betting markets and the odds and all these various things to push propaganda, to propagandize people, to try to push certain narratives and whatever, it's all so manipulative. And it's all coming at people it's everything, everywhere all at once, coming at people. And I don't think people's brains are like quite equipped to handle just this intense flow of disinformation and lies and gaslighting that is being funneled at every people by these massive technological conglomerates every day. And it's a frightening thought. It's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's
an important one, because the philosophical underpinnings of the JD Vance and this Project 2025 movement, comes from these people like a Peter Thiel, but I think even more than like a Thiel, somebody by the name of Curtis Yarvin, who we've covered here before. And we were actually talking a lot about Yarvin in 2024, because he imagines a technocratic monarchy that is along the lines of feudalism. Okay. And that it is a significant way that you have this division of labor and this feudal-like system. And that was actually part of the plan. So I think that it is important to know these underpinnings. And Brett, to your point, not all AI is bad. And actually AI opens up a lot of opportunities. However, with opportunities comes responsibility. And this is where you need common sense regulation in this area. And with Trump and this regime, there's no guardrails at all. And I think that there is no balancing here. And what you expect in a system of checks and balance is this type of balancing and trying to strike the right compromises, whereas Trump is one way all the way into the extreme. But I do want to talk about Prop 50. I do want to talk about New Jersey. I do want to talk about Virginia. And I think it's important to see kind of Democrats addressing the issue. And I want to talk about New York City, because really it's Zoran Mamdani who's, I think, really led the way in showing the importance of focusing on affordability. And I think what's interesting is that Donald Trump actually, if there's, this isn't a compliment to him, but one thing he's able to recognize as a con artist, it's people's suffering, and he understands how to use it to manipulate them. So that's why he promises Doge dividend checks and tariff rebates, and he knows exactly how to find a mark and lie to them. So he knew that, you can't be saying the economy's doing great when people aren't able to afford groceries and basic necessities. So he played to that And then he said, I alone can fix it. Now, I think what you can do is recognize the pain and suffering, speak to it, but actually offer real solutions. And if I were to say, what was one word that defined the Mamdani campaign and why was it successful? In addition to him running a very smart, savvy, energetic campaign, that he's a great campaigner, a la an Obama, quite frankly. I don't think I've seen as good as a campaigner in terms of energy since Obama, but it's affordability, affordability, affordability. And I think we see lots of people speaking to this issue. And then I think you see in California, Governor Gavin Newsom understanding the moment in such a important and timely way, right? To stand up, to not just say, look, I'm going to do an op-ed or speak out against Trump. I'm going to use my moral and formal authority with Prop 50. Now, recall that when Governor Newsom first announced Prop 50, all the right wing was swarming the zone, right? With all this stuff. Oh, Prop 50 is going to fail. Remember, they showed all those polls and said it's underwater. They trotted out all of their right wing people and they said this is dead on arrival. And I remember all the op-eds and think pieces from all the corporate media trashing it. They tried to set up a dynamic that it's like Newsom versus Schwarzenegger. And Newsom really focused on a digital first strategy. He focused on bringing his message directly to the people, being strong, right, and right, whereas Donald Trump, strong, wrong, and fraud, weakness masquerading as strength. And now we're seeing what it looks like to run a powerful campaign. So I want to show you California Governor Gavin Newsom. This is today where he says the thing with Trump, it's nothing more than weakness masquerading as strength. Here, play this clip.
It's great to be back here. And I'll just conclude with this. Jen said it. Other speakers said it. Donald Trump is nothing more than weakness masquerading as strength. Why else do you need to make a phone call to Greg Abbott in the middle of the midterm redistricting? Unless you're weak. You saw today, Donald Trump one-upped himself. Historic president. Historically unpopular president. The most unpopular since his first term. He's underwater in every key category. He knows he's going to lose the midterm elections, period, full stop. That's why he made the call to Greg Abbott saying he's entitled to 5 seats. That's why he sent J.D. Vance to Indiana. That's why he moved them to make the decision they did in Missouri. That's why they moved in North Carolina. These guys are not screwing around.
Not screwing around. Then I want to show this as well, because I hadn't watched many speeches of California Governor Gavin Newsom's wife speak before. She was incredible. I just want to show you here Governor Newsom's wife speaking, because again, I thought her speech was very powerful, and to me, it just spoke to raising a family in normalcy and not having this hate and bullying. Here's Jennifer Siebel Newsom. Let's play this clip.
And I will tell you right now, I will not raise my children to think Donald Trump is an acceptable American leader. Nor that he is what the leader of our great country should behave like. Yes. I won't raise them to think his terror enables his power and that his greed equals success. He is the exact opposite of what real strength looks like. So in our house, Gavin and I will continue to teach our kids what strength really looks like. If you see someone sitting alone at a table, you invite them to your table. If you see someone being bullied, you speak up and ask an adult for help. And you always, always tell the truth. Maybe if Donald Trump's parents had taught him any of these lessons, we wouldn't be in this mess. On the contrary, Trump is enriching his immediate family and cronies. He is stripping away our rights and our democracy. When he knows he's going to lose, he cheats. When the game isn't rigged for him, he rigs it himself. Sometimes no is a full sentence. Trust me. That's right. But Donald Trump's never accepted no for an answer. He's a con artist, a predator, a malignant narcissist, in chief, and the worst president in our nation's history.
Powerful words right there. And what an incredible speech that she gave. As I said, I hadn't seen many speeches that she gave before, and I watched that, and I'm glad that ASIN clipped that. I'm glad we're highlighting it because it's much more refreshing seeing that than a Melania speech. I'll leave it. I'll leave it at that. When Melania is selling her crypto and Melania is selling this and that, and what
Melania, cash sign Melania.
Maybe I'll do a video on Melania based on the contrast right there. I don't know. I want to remind everybody, I did an interview with California Governor Gavin Newsom. It's on his podcast channel on YouTube and on his podcast channel on audio. So check it out. It's a 80-minute interview that I did last week. It dropped on Thursday. So I'm not sure if you've seen it since then, but watch it. I talk about the origin story of MeidasTouch, and I think it's I think
the governor interviewed Ben for clarity. The governor interviewed Ben for his podcast. And Ben, I thought he did a great job. I found it inspiring. I found it informative. To talk to you all day, I still learned some things. Watching you, listening to it.
15-minute interview. It was like an hour. It was like an hour and 20.
This is in depth. Many people were excited to learn that Ben is not just a torso, that he's a full
legs. I do have legs. A reminder as well, check out The Last Republican, the movie that we produced with Adam Kinzinger. We distributed. It's with a bunch of great producers who came together, and we were honored to be the distributor of this film. And it was the #1 documentary, and is the #1 documentary on Apple TV. So check it out. When we come back, I want to talk about New Jersey. I want to talk about Virginia. And by the way, as I mentioned before, it was not a foregone conclusion that Prop 50 was going to get this type of momentum. And I think it just shows that it is important to just be proud and stand behind your values and fight back and not listen to all of the noise. And I think Democrats have done a good job heading into Tuesday with that. We'll ultimately see the results. We definitely should not get complacent. Everybody's got to make sure you have a voting plan if you haven't voted, and get out there and help others. Let us know in the comments what you're doing to do that. But when we come back, I want to talk about the Mikey Sherrill race in New Jersey. She's running for governor, congresswoman, helicopter pilot. You don't get much more accomplished than that. Abigail Spanberger in Virginia. And she worked in the intelligence agencies, also a congresswoman as well. Really accomplished people who are running for these important offices. We'll talk about that and more. Let's take our last quick break of the show.
Every business is asking the same question. How do we make AI work for us? The possibilities are endless, and guessing is too risky. But sitting on the sidelines is not an option, because one thing is almost certain. Your competitors are already making their move. No more waiting. With NetSuite by Oracle, you can put AI to work today. NetSuite is the #1 AI cloud ERP, trusted by over 43,000 businesses. It's a unified suite that brings your financials, inventory, commerce, HR, and CRM into a single source of truth. That connected data is what makes your AI smarter, so it doesn't just guess. It knows. It intelligently automates routine tasks, delivers actionable insights, helps you cut costs, and make fast AI-powered decisions with confidence. This isn't another bolted-on tool. It's AI built into the system that runs your business. Whether you're a company that earns millions or even hundreds of millions, NetSuite helps you stay ahead of the pack. I use this, and you should too. Right now, get our free business guide, Demystifying AI, at netsuite.com/Meidas. The guide is free to you at netsuite.com/Meidas. netsuite.com/Meidas. If you're like me, instead of learning to skateboard, you wish you were learning to write code. Instead of scraping through college, you wish you bought Bitcoin at less than a cent or secured a few Nvidia shares before they boomed. We might be the FOMO generation, but don't miss out on protecting your future. For around the same price per month as one of your streaming services, you can break our generational cycle and secure your and your family's future by finding life insurance at SelectQuote.com. If you're new to life insurance, you're not alone. Thankfully, I found SelectQuote. For over 40 years, SelectQuote has helped more than 2 million Americans understand their options and get the coverage they need. Over $700 billion in coverage and counting. As a broker, their mission is simple: to find you the right insurance policy at the best price. SelectQuote takes the guesswork out of finding the right life insurance policy. You don't have to sort through dozens of confusing options on your own. Instead, one of their licensed agents will find the right policy at the right price for you, comparing plans from trusted, top-rated insurance companies to find a policy that fits your health, your lifestyle, and your budget. And they work for you for free. You'll be covered faster than you think. SelectQuote works with providers who offer same-day coverage up to $2 million worth with no medical exam required. And you're not out of luck if you have a pre-existing health condition, because SelectQuote partners with companies that offer policies for people with conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart disease. SelectQuote makes life insurance simple, even if this is your first time thinking about it. Head to SelectQuote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Life insurance is never cheaper than it is today. Get the right life insurance for you for less and save more than 50% at SelectQuote.com/Meidas. Save more than 50% on term life insurance at SelectQuote.com/Meidas today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/Meidas. Links in description of both YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes, let them know we sent you. Benji, where to next?
Yeah, I want to talk about this Virginia race. Abigail Spanberger, former Democratic Congresswoman, against Winsome Earl Sears. You know, Sears has been saying all these. She's like ultra MAGA, and she says that it's not discrimination if you fire people because they're gay. She says, I don't understand. By the way, the lieutenant governor candidate in the Republican Party is gay. She says that she doesn't know why people are upset when they get fired by Donald Trump at the federal government. She goes, we've all gotten fired. Get over it. She doesn't care about the suffering that's going on in Virginia right now. So that's the Virginia race. And Abigail Spanberger's leading in the polls, but should not get overconfident there at all. Should never get overconfident about any of these races. Let's be very clear. Then you have the race in New Jersey. You have Mikey Sherrill, the former Democratic Congresswoman there, helicopter pilot, former federal prosecutor. I mean, these people's resumes are unbelievable. Then you've got this guy, Jack Ciattarelli, the MAGA Republican candidate, who gives Donald Trump an A. He was asked during the debate, what score do you give Donald Trump so far? He goes, an A. Well, what do you think about Donald Trump, like, destroying all these projects for New Jersey? And Ciattarelli's like, whatever, like, it is what it is. I'll make it work. It doesn't make a big difference. Like, you're giving the guy an A. Just think about that. If you think this is an A, okay, you've got a lot of problems. Like, you're in a cult if you think that this is an A. And then you have in New York City, of course, you have Zoran Mandami, who's running as the Democratic candidate. And then he's running against Andrew Cuomo, for all purposes, is basically kind of running as a MAGA candidate. He got a Trump endorsement, like, seems to be okay with that, and he's courting all of MAGA there. You know,
it's so bizarre, honestly. I just can't wrap my head around it, honestly. Like, and we could all think back to like the COVID days of Cuomo and the beginning of COVID. Like, the guy was like a hero at that point, right? Like, he was given the daily bulletins and recaps when there was this void of leadership, when we had no idea what was going on. You know, he was there, he was doing his thing. And just to see this kind of downfall play out before our eyes, whether it was with the various assault scandals that we witnessed, and, you know, him not taking no for an answer again after he lost the race in the Democratic primary, then running as an independent, which I thought was a weird move. And then his entire kind of transformation into becoming the MAGA pick for mayor of New York City. Honestly, it's like, it's upsetting to me. And to me, you know, I think that a lot of New Yorkers, I think that you should be pissed off at Andrew Cuomo for how horrible of a campaign that he's run. I think especially in these last few weeks, I've seen some of the most disgraceful political messaging that I've seen in my entire life. And that says a lot in the age of Trump, where they're invoking things like 9/11 and all these other Islamophobic and racist attacks on Zoran Mamdani in the last minute. I just think it's a total disgrace to watch the downfall of this guy who I once had respect for. It's honestly, it's just a shameful thing. I truly wish the race was between Mamdani and Sliwa, and voters actually had more of a choice there between the two candidates. And I think Zoran Mamdani has run an inspiring campaign that's not about what he's against, but about what he's for. And what he's for is affordability. And every time I notice they try to get him off message. Could you respond to, Donald Trump saying he's more handsome than you? Can you respond to this? Can you, they throw everything at him. He's very smart at bringing the conversation back to, I care about the affordability of New Yorkers. That's what I'm going to talk about today. That's my focus. I don't care what Donald Trump says about, who's better looking or whatever the hell's going on. And I think that's been resonating with people. And I think, as we look at these various races that are kind of underway and these elections on Tuesday, I think you see a lot of different kind of candidates, a lot of diversity in the Democratic Party, diversity of thought, diversity in other ways. And I think that is a good thing. I think it's a good thing to have diversity in the party. I think it's a good thing to have a big tent party that's inclusive of all ideas, where you could have somebody run in one district or one city, and then you could have somebody run in another state, in another district, all running on maybe not the exact same message, but fighting to move the country in the same direction, in a direction of progress, in a direction of hope, trying to actually inspire the people, push back against this MAGA BS that's going on, all the chaos that we're seeing. And so that's why I think it's cool to see this developing right now across the country, from California to Virginia to New York, this big tent party and the Democrats forming, seeing these ideas that are proactive rather than reactive, and showing a party that's actually trying to fight for the people right now in a time where there's so much chaos going on.
When you were laying out sort of that downfall of Cuomo, Brett, who just kept coming to mind, and I just think it's very on point of who it reminds me of? Giuliani. That it's the same arc that they all sort of take into this MAGA sphere of where they were once sort of these beloved New York figures, and now you're just left scratching your head, especially someone who lived in New York at the time and saw how the people on the ground at least felt energized for these folks. Yeah. I'm telling the brothers, for the audio listeners, they're not really buying this arc.
Well, because Giuliani was always a Republican. He was always kind of a fairly right-wing guy who was beloved after 9/11.
Yes,
and then he became the people's mayor.
Yes, that's where I'm going with that. As someone who, at least from a New Yorker perspective, was at least someone who was a fighter, and then fell down the MAGA arc. Remember, MAGA didn't exist.
Jordy's favorite mayor, Jordy's favorite mayor, Rudy got it. No, I got it. Point taken. Rudy was a generally well-liked figure in the post 9/11 world, and then ruined his reputation by kowtowing to Trump and becoming this bizarre caricature with duty dripping down his face during conferences and screaming outside of landscaping facilities, Four Seasons landscaping. I get what you're trying to say.
Speaking of duty dripping down people's faces, I
can't believe this transition really works.
It actually works. So because of Donald Trump posting memes of himself dumping diarrhea on peaceful protesters, which is something that he's done, you had former President Barack Obama actually address that. But in the context of, these are distractions that Donald Trump is trying to throw in people's faces. I mean, again, gross. In order to distract from the fact that he's, ripping people off, and he is hoisting up this right-wing oligarchy at the expense of the people. So this is Obama in Virginia with Abigail Spanberger. Let's play this clip right here.
The fabricated conspiracies, the weird videos of a U.S. president with a crown on his head, flying a fighter jet and dumping poop on American citizens. Don't boo. No. Wait. That's not even worth booing about, because all of that is a distraction. All of it is designed to distract you from the fact that your situation, your life, has not gotten better. They do it so you won't notice that at the same time that they're helping the wealthiest, most powerful people in the country consolidate more wealth and more power, your bills are still going up. You're waiting longer at airports because there aren't enough air traffic controllers. The program that helps your kid with special needs just got gutted. They are hoping you don't notice that. But the good news is there is something you can do about it, New Jersey. Right here, right now. Because you've got a candidate for governor who's a proven fighter, who's got a track record of getting stuff done. Somebody who sees you and knows your struggles and will work for you every single day. New Jersey, it's time to point America in a better direction by electing Mikey Sherrill as your next governor.
Powerful, powerful stuff right there.
Still got it. Still got it.
Yeah. What he was doing, just to be clear, that one was in Mikey Sherrill, but he did the Spanberger ones. In that same day, he went to both Virginia and he went to New Jersey, and he gave speeches for each, and they were both like that. And it was, I think powerful, appropriately calling everything up. But I want to show this because, one of the data points that we saw earlier today with all this horrible polling by Donald Trump, or from CNN, from YouGov, from The Economist, is that Donald Trump's underwater on every single issue, also every single demographic, also including white people. He's -1 right now. And that was the only demo that seemed to not be underwater, but now that's underwater. He's like -74 with Black Americans. I think it was like -38 with Hispanic Americans. Young people, he is like absolutely plummeting. Like he started off actually being net favorable amongst young people, and that's like crashed. 18 to 29-year-olds, Trump's like as unpopular as any president in modern presidential history right now. And you think about all of these, younger people, whether it's the right-wing podcast bros who are saying this, or like the UFC fighters, who are all pro-Trump. You're just seeing a lot of this right now. Like here's UFC fighter Bryce Mitchell rescinding his support of Donald Trump and saying that actually not only is he rescinding his support, this guy was ultra MAGA, said he would take a bullet for Donald Trump if you remember. He now says that Donald Trump is likely the biblical Antichrist. Here, play this clip.
Hey, I want to let y'all know I'm not with Donald Trump no more. I don't support him. I don't like him. I think he's a corrupted leader. And, it took me a while to come to that conclusion, but I finally am coming to it. I do not like the guy at all. The first thing for me was he didn't release the Epstein files. They're even acting like they didn't exist. And, of course, they're sending Israel and Ukraine all of our tax dollars, just like the numbnuts before him did. Putting America last. And now he's blaming the beef farmers for the price of beef. Hey, I'm not biased, man. He talked a good game. He tricked me. I was fooled. I admit it. Okay, now let me tell you how bad I think this is, though. This is really this bad, guys. I want y'all, if you're a Christian, I want you to get into Revelation 13:3, and I want you to read that verse. Yeah, about the Antichrist, about the one who was fatally wounded in the head. Then he was miraculously healed, and the whole world marveled at him and said no man can make war with him. Yeah, I do think that Donald Trump is that beast of Revelation 13:3. Yeah, go read it. Go read it. There ain't another man that's ever walked the planet that fits Revelation 13:3. Then read the...
Okay, I think we get the point there. And it goes on for another... Yeah, it goes on for a while there. But like, here's the thing, though. Remember, I'm not trying to like self-glaze right here, but do you remember?
For the audio listeners, Ben patted himself on the shoulder.
Do you remember? Do you remember when we called this the rug pull presidency starting right away? And that was the name. We said this is going to be known as the rug pull presidency. And we started that with the crypto schemes that they were launching right away. For young people, I think they're seeing the rug pull. And I think they genuinely believed it. Maybe they don't have the historical experience with this guy as a con artist who spent his whole life bankrupting things and bankrupting people and destroying lives. But he somehow spoke to like, I'm going to make you rich. And people thought, I guess, I don't know how you believe this thing. After a guy who's bankrupted multiple casinos and put multiple companies out of business before stepping into politics, but whatever. But it's been the ultimate rug pull, and they're doing it in ways right now that are just so grotesque and ugly and obvious. Like, when he says, "Oh, I brought in $22 trillion," or from Asia, I brought in trillions of dollars. okay, well, if you brought in that money, then why aren't you giving healthcare free to everybody? Why aren't you giving education to everybody? Why are people suffering? Why are things so expensive? If there truly is all this money that you brought in, then why is it that, that what you're claiming doesn't match up with people's realities? So to me, the more he says there's no inflation, we're in a golden age right now, that prices are dramatically down, that he's brought in trillions, it just kind of backfires. And I think we need to, as messengers, harness those big numbers and say, okay, well then, if that's the case, this is the biggest Ponzi scheme in world history. Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme was $64 billion. This is a $22 trillion Ponzi scheme, and the mark is the American people. And the people who are making the money, the rug pullers, are the billionaires. So just before we go, here's Caroline Leavitt once again over the weekend saying that billions of dollars, no, trillions of dollars were brought in on trade deals in Asia, when in fact, what we know took place is that with China, even though there was no signed deal, if you have the understanding that Donald Trump brags about, America will be able to export 2 trillion, or rather 2 million metric tons of soybeans less than under former President Biden. 2 million metric tons less. It was 27 million metric tons under Biden that China accepted. Now they're going to accept 25 next year. This year, 12 million metric tons of soybeans. And then every year, China will conduct an annual evaluation of its rare earth element controls about whether or not it should restrict its exports to the United States. That didn't exist under former President Biden. So the deal was a total surrender. It was a total capitulation, and Xi Jinping's never looked stronger. But here's what Caroline Leavitt says. Let's play it.
Look at what President Trump has been able to do by leveraging tariffs and leveraging the might of the United States economy. We are the #1 consumer country in the world, and every country around the world knows it. It's because of tariffs that President Trump has been effectively able to cut so many tailor-made trade deals with so many countries around the country. Look at what around the world. I mean, look at what he just did in Asia. You had Malaysia, you had Japan, you had South Korea, trade deals all over the place, trillions of dollars of investments pouring into our country because of his effective use of tariffs.
Trillions of dollars? Really? Where is it then? Where's the trillions of dollars? The tariffs have caused inflation. And it just reminds me, this is how the Jerusalem Post described the fact that now Turkey is holding an emergency meeting because the Gaza ceasefire has totally blown up. Just take a look at every word here. And this is, I want to end on this, because one of the things we called out as well was when the corporate media was like, historic peace deal between Israel and Hamas. We were like, what's the deal? Israel and Hamas didn't sign it. Israel hasn't agreed to a 2-state solution. Hamas didn't agree to disarm. Israel has not allowed the humanitarian aid to flow as it was required to. Over 100 Palestinians have been killed. What's the deal? Like, explain to me the historic deal. I'm glad the hostages were returned. Biden got 83% of the hostages returned. But what's the historic deal? It's a ceasefire, but then people keep dying. Palestinians keep dying. So that's not really a ceasefire. But here's how it's described in the Jerusalem Post about this meeting that Turkey's now holding, which Netanyahu, by the way, doesn't want to have Turkey leading this because those issues were never addressed. The U.S. brokered Gaza truce, which left thorny issues like the disarmament of Palestinian militant group Hamas and a timeline of Israeli withdrawal from Gaza unresolved, has been tested by periodic violence since coming into force. Like, quite literally, I want you to think about every single word there. Thorny issues like, I don't know, the main issue, right? Should Hamas be disarmed? Yes. And should there be a 2-state solution? Yes. And should the humanitarian aid flow into Gaza? Yes. And then it says periodic violence. You mean not the ceasefire? Because there's been over 100 Palestinians killed. It just goes to show you everything with this regime is an utter lie. So I wanted to leave on that. Brett and Jordy, I'll give you the final words on this episode.
Well, here's how I'll wrap it up, right? So we see the propaganda, right? It looks obvious to us, but apparently it's not obvious to everybody. We see Caroline Leavitt going out there talking about trade deals that simply don't exist. You see the media and Trump touting ceasefires that There's no ceasing of firing. So I don't know how you call what is happening a ceasefire by any means. You see this push by these various platforms, by people like Elon Musk, by people like Mark Zuckerberg, these various platforms that are constantly pushing and platforming all of these lies, building them up, putting them to the top of your feed to make it appear that the things that Donald Trump is doing is more popular than they are. Then you start getting the actual hard data in, and you actually start seeing what Americans think. And you see, oh, wow, Americans effing hate this crap. Like, not even like a little bit on the side. I don't really know exactly. They freaking hate what is going on. And that is being shown in the data. And so if there's anything I want to leave you with, as you're listening to this on Election Day, Tuesday, or the day before Monday, it's that this is a way, as Governor Gavin Newsom said the other day during his Prop 50 event, to show the pundits that they have it all wrong. This is a way to flip all of these BS narratives that they've been spreading on their head, because there is no arguing with the actual hard results of these elections. And just think for 1 second how the narrative out there shifts, how this cloak of invincibility that Donald Trump and these Republicans try to wrap themselves with, think about how that goes away in an instant if they get swept in these elections, if they lose most of these elections even. It could be actually a seismic shift in at least the kind of optics of what is going on, because they're trying to project all of the strength. They're trying to project like nothing can stop them. Well, as we've seen in the No Kings protests, and as I hope we see Tuesday, we could show them the power of the people. We can show them that all of that is complete and total BS. So do not get complacent. Go to the polls. Check if you have elections near you. There are elections throughout a lot of the country, small elections, big elections. I don't care what the elections are by you. Participate in our democracy. You see how fragile our democracy is. Go out, vote, get to the polls. Do your civic duty. I'm going to put that on you, not the duty that Donald Trump is spraying all over our heads in AI videos, but do your civic duty and actually get to work, okay? This is the part where you rise up and prove the pundits wrong. This is where you prove MAGA wrong and show them that they are living in this fantasy land. Listen, I don't make predictions about elections. I'm certainly not going to make predictions about this. You see the polls. I don't totally care about the polls ultimately, because this is where it matters. It matters that you show up and you get the work done. So let's do it. And share your stories with us. I'm always excited to hear about your stories going to the polls, how the experience was, what inspired you to vote, and encourage other people, right? The same way we tell you, go out there, spread the word of the MeidasTouch podcast, share it with a friend, share it with a family member, that's what helps. Well, guess what? Your friends and family are going to listen to your opinions on the elections far more than they're going to listen to us or anybody else they see on TV or on the internet or whatever. You are the best advocate. So get out there, inspire people, encourage people to vote. I believe in y'all. I really, really believe in the power of this community. So let's show that power Tuesday during these elections. All right. That's enough from me, folks. I'm just going to have to toss it over to Jordy.
Let's go. I'm energized, B. Shout out to the Midas Mighty.
The Midas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song. We will get it right whenever.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.